Jeff Harold from the Lake County Art League, and I'm here having a conversation with Michele Byrne, who is an absolutely wonderful painter especially with a palette knife. I love palette knives. So, and Michele is currently living in New Mexico. Is that right?
Yes.
I got that. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I wanted to make sure.
Yes, Santa Fe.
Santa Fe. Okay.
Yes.
Do you know the way to San Jose? No, that's San Jose, isn't it?
That's
okay.
San Jose.
Oh wait. Okay, never mind.
That song, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
close.
Anyways, so and you can see a lot of her work. You can go to her website. You'll see it underneath her right here, michelebyrne.com, and she's also on Instagram at Michele Byrne Art. So you can find her in both places. And thank you for agreeing to do this interview or this conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah.
And let's start off with just a little bit about yourself, how you got into this racket of painting and what have you. So
yeah, well, it was. I know I was the third of three children. I was the youngest, like 6 years behind. So, and we lived in the country, so I had like a lot of time to myself, and I used to do a lot of crafty kind of things. And then when I went to kindergarten, I remember it was Christmas, and we all made Santa Clauses and cut them out, and I didn't really think anything of it. And the teacher goes, "Oh, we're going to put Michelle's on the bulletin board because she's a good artist." And I went, "Oh, I'm a good artist." Like, I didn't know that. No one ever told me that. And that was it. From that day on, I wanted to be an artist because, I drew all the time, and my parents were used to me drawing, and it was like they didn't say you're good or anything. So I always thank my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Winkler, for my art career, because from that day on, I wanted to paint. And then I drew a lot, and then my parents noticed that I was drawing, and they said, "Do you want to go to an art class?" And it was a barn. It was called Kitsch's Studio, and it was a barn in Reinholds, Pennsylvania. And it was all adults except me and Jimmy Brossman, this other boy that was my age. And we did oil painting. Like, there was no worry about the fumes if you're a kid or anything like that. And we just painted. And I painted a lot of covered bridges, which to this day I don't like them because I did so many bad ones back then. But yeah, I painted in oil paints from 8 years old, and then I switched. Then when all my high school teachers said you can't make a living as an artist, so they said be an architect or a graphic designer. So the one good thing about my guidance counselor, which, she said, "No, you can't be an artist." She did make me take a mechanical drawing class. So it was like in the shop room, and it was all boys and me in 8th grade, I think. So I really learned perspective, like, really good. And I assume that everyone else knows it. So when I teach, sometimes I'm thinking like, "Oh, you don't know that," where you take a block and draw the perspective. Mm-hmm. So I learned all that because they told me I couldn't be an artist. But then I went to Kutztown University for graphic design. But I always wanted to paint. So I took a lot of illustration classes. And then when I graduated, I had a graphic design job in a little studio for, I don't know, just 2 or 3 years. And then I freelanced. So I've been working on my own since I was 23. So I'm used to making myself work hard. And, people used to always say, "Don't you just want to lay around and watch TV?" It was like, no, I want to paint. So anyway, I did graphic design full time on my own until like 2001. And it was right when September 11th happened, and all my graphic design clients decided they were going to do their own, because they all had their own computers, and they were going to do their own, I guess it was called desktop publishing back then.
Yeah.
And so then I would do graphic design in the daytime and paint at night. And then I think it was around 2005 where I told all my clients I was done, and then I would just do my painting in the daytime and a few little graphic design things at night. So it kind of was like a slow switch over from graphic design to painting, but I already knew how to work hard on my own.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a big switch. I didn't quit a job.
Yeah.
Because I was freelancing.
Yeah.
So it kind of made it, I don't know if I'd say easier. I do think that I work harder than the average person, but
I
it's what I do.
I don't doubt that you probably do. And the only thing I can say is, it sounds to me like you're glad it's not a job because you wouldn't enjoy it as much. They always say if you're doing what you enjoy, it's not work. So, but
Yeah, that's
I
true.
know my friend Phil is just mentioning, he's he did basically the same thing. He was into consulting and working for people doing illustrations companies and what have you, and he still does a little freelance stuff on that. But he was telling me the other day he's working harder now than he was before, and
Oh,
he's putting out absolutely marvelous work. So it's good. It's something you can carry on through the rest of your life, and
yeah, yeah. Because one
it's
time I saw a financial advisor and he was sitting there with a chart and he goes, "So what age do you want to retire?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm not going to retire. I'm an artist." And he goes, "Well, you have to give me an age." And I said, "Well, I'm never going to retire." And he just like never called me back. I didn't fit into his formula. So,
she
yeah,
tell him 100. you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
tell him you'll retire when you reach 100.
Right.
But yeah, and that's probably the case. I know my aunt. She was not a artist, but she did paint, and she loved painting, and she was better than she thought she was. But when she passed away at 99, she was still doing the occasional, painting, doing it.
Yeah,
So
that's my goal to have an easel, a painting in progress on my easel when I die. That would be great.
okay. I got a question for you. Okay,
Okay.
Edward Hopper. Okay, I don't know how familiar you are with his work, and his wife.
Yes,
And
I
his
am.
wife is Joanne, I think is what his name was. They call her Joe. Okay, he did one final painting before he died. This was the last work that he ever did, and it was him and Joe on the stage dressed as like not like clowns, but performing outfits like that, and just taking a bow. That was his final painting.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I
What would
didn't know
your
that.
final painting be?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Maybe a self-portrait showing all my wrinkles and everything. I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to think about
Okay.
that one longer than a minute, probably. But yeah, probably. I don't know. Probably something of myself. Just I always think of Monet when his wife died. He painted her like dead in her bed, and I always thought that's like really bizarre.
Oh,
But
I didn't know that.
yeah,
I
it's
don't.
at the Museum d'Orsay. It's all kind of soft and veiled, and he just, I guess, wanted to remember her one last time. I thought that was pretty odd, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, there are things like that that I think about that, and I present them to the league, and just things like what do you want to think about as an artist as far as what do you want to produce, and what do you think of your work itself. And the one challenge I will give you one more challenge. Okay, and
okay,
you don't have to answer now. It's something to think about. It's something I've thought about ever since I read H.G. Wells' Time Machine, and when I saw the movie, because every version of that is a little bit different and what have you. But the one movie version with Rod Taylor in it, at the very end of it, when the guy goes back in time to the future, or goes to the future time wise, one of the guys is asking his housekeeper, well, what did he take with him? And she says, I don't know, but there are 3 books missing. And so my question I did with people that I was managing at the time, I said, okay, what 3 books would you take? If you went to the future, what 3 books would you take from now? And then I asked our league too, what 3 paintings would you take? So it's just
okay,
those are the sort of things I like to sort of think about. Is okay, if I had to take just 3 of my works, what 3 would I take?
yeah,
So, anyways,
okay.
all right. I'm sorry. Like I say, I digress on things like that. So,
That's okay.
And yeah, so anyways, that's that. Uh, go on here. I know
Okay.
we wanted to talk about I want whoops, here we go. Okay, let's talk about your paintings, the ones from the intro.
Okay.
Okay, and this one is what was the title of this one? After the Snow on 53rd Street, I think is what that is.
Yeah, well,
The
actually, I changed the
53rd.
name of that one to, it was Glowing Glory. And this is
Yeah,
a New York City street scene. And I've been painting New York City street scenes with flags have pretty much been my bread and butter paintings for a long time.
oh, I can
So when I
imagine.
moved to Santa Fe, yeah, when I moved to Santa Fe, I kind of thought that I wouldn't be doing them anymore, but I am. And this is my newest one. It's 36 by 24, and it's of a street in Manhattan after it snowed with the flags. And it's Fifth Avenue, and
Yeah,
there's always flags on Fifth Avenue. And when I lived in Pennsylvania, I used to go to New York City a lot. I had won in graphic design class. I had won this award where I got to be an intern in Manhattan for a summer, and I just kind of fell in love with the city. And the flag thing kind of started, I think, after 2001 when September 11th happened. I
yeah,
think I had gone back up to the city like that following April, or I don't know what month it was, but I remember like standing on a corner looking at my map, and this guy came up and he goes, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm trying to look for the Staples. You know, there was a Staples. I was trying to find it." And he walked me right into the store, and I came out, and just everybody was so friendly, and the flags were flying. And it was like something just like really hit me that I really wanted to start painting flags. And I really enjoy painting for the freedom and the way they flap and
yeah,
move around. And so I painted them in all kinds of weather. And it's not a political statement in any way because I know the flag has kind of come and gone, but I still think that to me it symbolizes the freedom we have in our country. And I think
yeah,
as compared to most of the world, usually we're pretty
yeah,
fortunate to be here. So,
yes. And I
but
noticed
and
you
I also
did.
like to paint. Yeah, people in motion is another thing I
Yeah,
love to paint. So,
yeah. Now I noticed in some of the other stuff I was looking at yours and reading, uh, you do take some of the work is done from pictures. So is this one that was done from photograph or composite
yes,
of
yes.
photograph and imagination or?
Yeah, a lot of different photographs. I combine them and I add things where I want to. And now I have painted in New York City plein air quite a few times. I actually enjoy it, and they're usually smaller, like 9 by 12, 12 by 16 at the biggest. But I've stood right on Fifth Avenue and painted, and most people just you have to just make sure you're close to a pole or a trash can so you don't get run over. But bas basically everyone's super friendly or they don't
Yeah,
notice you. So
yeah,
I really enjoy painting the city.
yeah.
But it's been a while since I've been there, so I haven't painted there for a while, but I
Okay.
plan to return.
All right. Well, that one is in the city, and this one was in a. This one was in Paris, right?
Well, this is well, I was in Paris last year, last September, and I took millions of photographs, and I was with three really good friends that are really good artists, and all we did was paint for a week. But
Yeah.
so I painted 8 by 10s and 9 by 12s. So this one, I was teaching a class here in my studio in September, and the class was about adding figures. And I had two of my neighbors come, and they sat kind of like these two women, and they posed for us. And then the next day, somebody said, "Well, I want you to paint us, show us how you do waiters." So I said, "Okay." And I went into my office and I had this little postcard that I bought in Paris in 2005. And I've had it on my desk since then, thinking I want to paint these two women. So for the class, this was a 14 by 18, I think, 18 by 14. I took the postcard and then I just and I had some photographs of waiters that I had taken in Paris, and I just kind of put it all together and made up the background. And I was really happy with it because besides the fact that I used to paint a lot of women in conversation, and I've
Yeah.
always wanted to paint those too because they have such character. And I love waiters with their black vests and white crisp
Yeah.
shirts. So yeah,
Yeah,
that was
this
kind of made up. Yeah.
yeah, one of the reasons I asked you to include this one is that first of all, I'm a big Impressionist fan, and all your stuff is Impressionist. So as far as I'm concerned, or almost all of it is strictly Impressionist, which I love. And this in particular of the cafe scene, it just reminds me so much of uh, artists like Lautrec and Degas and people that actually painted out there and they
Oh
painted
yeah.
these scenes of this and I actually have one print by a little known lesser known artist from that time period, Edgar Shaheen, and it's called the Gigolos or Gigolos,
Oh,
which is two women just like this sitting there. And I imagine that they were working girls and they're sitting at a little round table like that. And when I saw this,
okay.
for some reason, it just reminded me of that. Not that I think these two are working girls or anything.
Right, right,
It's
right.
just it's just the it's the style and the subject and everything. And I just love the way the background is in there, and it's not realism, it's suggestion, just like the Impressionists do in a lot of stuff. So I
Well,
like
Toulouse-Lautrec is why I started painting people like this because I don't even know how I stumbled upon one of his books and I was like, oh my God, I love this. I love it all. And
yeah
then I went to Paris and saw some of his paintings and they're like painted on cardboard, but they
yeah
just have such a great feeling. And his book, whatever book that I had, just a little paperback, really inspired me to paint figures in cafe scenes.
oh yeah, he was good. He was one of my favorites. Uh, uh, okay, all right, let's go on. And this one you sent too, and this is a framed one. And again, it's I love it. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
flower.
Huh.
I'm not sure
Okay.
what
I
is
think it
this. Is
probably,
this a poppy or what? I don't know what it is. I'd have to ask my wife. She's the gardener.
oh, it's a, oh, it's the flower that I have a mental block on thinking of the name every single time, and the hollyhock. Hollyhocks grow in Santa Fe
Yeah,
all over the place, and this was in my friend Joanna Arnett's garden. She's a beautiful flower painter, and she has these roses and
yeah,
hollyhocks and things blooming all the time. So I just wanted to show something different that I do besides street scenes and people.
yeah.
And this was done plein air. And I think I included the frame by mistake. I probably hit the wrong button.
Oh, that's
But
fine. That's fine.
yeah,
I didn't know if you had an
but
intent for it or not. If I would known that, I could have just taken it out of there. It's not a problem. But
yeah, no.
no,
But it,
that's fine. It's a nice frame too for that picture.
yeah, it's very
I
simple.
think
But I use
so.
a palette knife on the florals too. And I don't do a whole lot of florals, but they're great practice. So
Yeah,
especially because when the flowers bloom here in Santa Fe, they're pretty magnificent.
yeah,
But it's not like anywhere else where you have like thousands of flowers. It's just like, oh wow, there's flowers there. Got to go paint them. So the roses and the fruit trees and hollyhocks, and then that big giant Jemison weed that Georgia O'Keeffe painted. They grow
ah,
wild in my yard. They're
thank
huge
you.
white flowers, and yeah, I haven't painted
I
one yet, but I will.
Yeah, I've been trying to think of her name
Oh,
forever.
Georgia O'Keeffe.
Georgia
Yeah,
O'Keeffe, because she did this huge, beautiful, huge flowers and everything, and I love those. And
right.
she, again, she's from that neighborhood out there, New Mexico. So after she moved out from New York, uh, but I love some of her work too. It's I love and I do a lot of photography of flowers too, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, the thing I try to do is I try to look at them and photograph them from an angle or view that people don't look at them. Like
Yes.
from underneath them, or I got oh, morning glories. I got morning glories where they're not fully open, but they got another one wrapped around it, growing around it,
Oh,
and vines,
yeah.
stuff like that. So, yeah, I enjoy flowers as well as about anything else I can get my hands on to photograph. So, okay, all right. So, okay, next thing, I'd like to go ahead and we can go to your website And
Okay.
let's look at that, because there's some stuff, like I said before, there's some things there that I'd like to talk to you about and have you explain. And this is always fun for me. Hang on just a second. I gotta get
Well,
this to where I can control it here. So anyways, so I'm sorry. I gotta look in here and close, because the way I can control it, is on the smaller screen here, and sometimes it's hard to read, hard to see what I'm doing here. Okay, that's not. Oh, there we go.
yeah, there's a lot of buttons on my website.
I'm gonna go all the way to the blog here, your blog,
Oh, okay.
and the Christmas. Whoops, get back here. Oh, okay. I can't do that here. Okay, I gotta do it this way. Oops. Now this was Christmas in Santa Fe, and I found it interesting the difference between what we call luminaires and
Oh.
and what they had out here as what was how do you pronounce
Well,
that?
out here, well, in Pennsylvania, we call them luminaires, where you
Yeah.
put the candle in the white bag. But out here, they put the candle in a brown paper bag, and they call them farolitos.
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
And then the fires that they build, like in that painting, they call them luminarios. So
Yes.
it's the opposite, like, of what I grew up with. So I was at it was Christmas Eve, and they have like a farolito walk up Canyon Road, which is where all the galleries are, and
Yeah.
it's very dark. It's actually very dangerous because no one can really see, and the curves are all crooked. But at the top of it, we were going to visit my friend Joanna Arnett. She was having a Christmas Eve party. So my son and his girlfriend were with me, and we walked up this one street. And at the end of the street, they were singing Spanish Christmas carols. And it was just like magical. And I was like, oh my God. I said to my son, I have to take pictures. And he goes, oh, Mom. He goes, they're never going to get. This is my 33-year-old son. He's going, they're never going to get. So I took like 3 pictures, and it was really cold. And then we went to the party. And I came home the next day, and I was like, oh my God, these pictures are fabulous. I got to paint it. So the day after Christmas, I think I did this 30 by 30. It took 2 or 3 days to do it, but I was really happy with it. And
So
then actually I had it on Instagram. I sold it this year in the fall, I think, at the gallery here. And then I got a Instagram post from a woman that said, I grew up in that house. I was like, oh my God.
oh
So
really?
yeah, that's what I love about social media, is that it makes the world a lot smaller,
Are we talking about this house here?
Yeah, at
What
the
you're
end
saying here?
there where there's
Yeah,
a
at the end
bonfire.
of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
that doorway on the left. I mean, if it's your house, you would recognize this. A really, really cool
True.
adobe wall, and this big giant tree comes out over it. So anyway, that was a pretty special painting.
That's nice.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I
And
don't blog. I don't blog often, but I blog when I did a painting that something about it was really exciting for me.
yeah.
So.
And here's you painting in the rain.
Oh yeah, I love to paint the basilica or the cathedral in downtown on the plaza, right off the plaza in Santa Fe. And I think
Yeah.
it's because it's very European. It was built by a French architect, and it took hundreds of years. But there's something about it that I don't know how many times I've painted it. Probably close to
Yeah,
10.
I like the rain. I don't go out anywhere near as much as I used to. And once in a while I do that. And I actually taught a class over at College Lake County here on night photography. And we went over to the nearby town, Libertyville, and it was raining. And they asked, oh, are we really going to go? And I said, sure, because it was raining that hard. It was just, at this point, it was more of a constant drizzle. But I got one scene that the wet sidewalk and wet, water in the gutter and everything, and on the sidewalk, woman walking down away from me with a blackened villa and a red coat on, and then flowers
Yeah.
and the lights and the flowers over here, big, whatever flower pot, whatever you call them, and I do this thing with them where I make them look like impressionist work, and that one is just it. I've sold about 3 copies of that one. I mean,
I
that's
think You kind of froze on my end. I'm not sure why though. Oh,
Oh
there we
well,
go.
you were froze on my end too for a few minutes, so it
Okay.
could have been anything. Could have been the internet or what have you. So
Yeah.
okay,
But
all
no,
right.
rainy street scenes. I love painting rainy street scenes. I kind of moved to the wrong place because, it's like in a drought here. But that day, I knew it was going to rain. It was in the forecast. I planned my whole day about around the rain. I got there before it started, and I was standing in front of a gallery. And I remember the guy came out and he goes, "Oh, you better hang on to your palette. It's going to blow away." And I said, "Don't worry, I got it all under control. I'm standing right here by the post under the thing. I had it all planned out." And it was just a little 12 by 12 or 10 by 10 that I did, but it was exciting. And then I did a much larger one from that
Yeah.
one. But I love the reflections in the rain on the streets,
Oh
and it
yeah.
just makes everything kind of
Oh
magical.
yeah. And then if you had Christmas lights in on it, whether
Yeah, yeah,
a combination of the colors and everything in the rain on the roads and what have you. So
yeah.
okay, now this one I was asking you about, and I learned a bit about perspective, and I had a drawing class one time, and we learned perspective, what have you. But this is crazy. You have all these perspective angles and everything, and you call it again what? Not
Oh,
dynamic
it's
perspective or dynamic.
dynamic symmetry, dynamic
Yeah.
symmetry, and it's
Okay.
it's a process using the Fibonacci numbers. And this is something
Oh
I
wow.
I went to I went to graphic design school and never learned about this, but I met a guy online, I don't know, 2016 maybe, and he was teaching dynamic symmetry, and he happened to be in Reading, Pennsylvania, which was where I was living near there. So I took like a 6-week class with him and learned. He used even more lines than that. I've kind of tried to
Wow.
simplify it, but it's that all your angles where they meet is where there's energy. It brings together all the lines that create energy. So I try to keep like subjects that I want you to look at where those lines meet.
Huh.
And it's just something that I started doing. And I even draw the grid a lot on my plein air canvases before I go out. And a lot of times it's just where to put a building or where to start or where to put an angle, but it helps me design it, and I think it creates a better design. So,
Wow. I'm going to have to look that up and
well, if you go to my
I.
YouTube channel, I have a
Oh,
YouTube
okay.
channel, and
Yes.
one of the things I did an interview for the Booth Museum in Georgia, and the visuals are terrible, but I explain everything that I learned about it and show some images. And I think I have something else on my YouTube channel about it, but it's uh, it's a pretty cool thing. Michelangelo used it. The Sistine Chapel, if you put a grid on it, it all
Uh
lines
huh.
up. And
Yeah.
Gustav Klimt, I put some of his paintings, a grid on top of them. It's like, oh my God, they like fit right in there. So
Wow.
it's pretty amazing. Even
Yeah.
Van Gogh, I don't know if you ever read any of the books about, he put wires on the back of his canvases and they crisscrossed. And then if he was facing the light, the wires would show through to his canvas, and he could use that as a grid to
Oh,
design his paintings.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I that's never heard that
it's pretty
before.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
it's
so
it's surprising what the artists back in those times did. It's like they use the what do they call it, the camera obscura, which basically
oh
you're
yeah,
just yeah it projects the image of your landscape. What are you looking at? Then use that to draw. Using grids
right.
like this, I would not have thought of them doing that, really. But yeah, that mathematical knowledge was around at that time, so
Well, there's actually a whole
it's applying
app
it.
for there's a whole app for photographers, and I can't remember what it's called, but you can get it on your phone. So when you go to take a picture, it puts that grid on it while you take your picture. You can line it up. I'll send it to you because I can't
Oh,
think of what it's called right now.
yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, because and we have the standard. Usually, we have the standard grids. The breaking it into thirds.
Right,
Because
right,
that's one of the standard compositional things that you do most of the time, but not all the time. But then there's the I forget what it's called. It's the spiral.
Oh yeah,
which
well that's
which
all
actually
part
is
of
is
dynamics.
part of
Yeah,
it. Yeah, it's part of the Fibonacci series. Really, is how they
right.
create the spiral.
Right.
But that's also composition. So yeah, there are some other things like that. But yeah, no, I'd love to see that if you can find it and send it to me. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, no, I have it on my phone. I just can't find it right now, or I would lose you.
Yeah. Oh, and here's the same painting. I'm assuming it looks like it, and you can see where you're losing the grid by painting over it. So, but you
Right.
start seeing how it's popping in at the intersections, like you're talking about. How
Right.
I call them PowerPoints for some reason. I heard that phrase one time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's like your rule of thirds. It's thirds because I call them PowerPoints. It's the best place to put your image of what you want the people to see,
Exactly.
and it
Right.
also allows for some visual motion in your work, in your picture,
Right.
whether it's a art, a painting, or a photograph or whatever. So okay. And this part of it I found interesting too is you have this picture up here in the beside the title of the Ghost Ranch, and what you're talking about is you put that one away for a while because you weren't quite happy with the way it turned out, and
Right.
then you came back, and this is interesting, and you came back and I love seeing this because I love seeing people out plein air and seeing all the stuff that they have. And
Oh yeah, we have a lot of stuff. Too much. I'm
yeah,
always trying to downsize, but I want all that stuff with me. So
yeah, hey,
yeah.
it's like photographers who take a backpack with all their equipment so they always have the right thing when they're right there.
Yeah.
But then you redid it and you got this picture here down at the bottom of this section right here.
Oh right.
And
Right.
and it was I would love to, and you talking a little bit about the differences. I'd love to see those two actually side by side because if you flip back and forth, I can start seeing some of the changes you made to it. All right, and they made sense.
Yeah, I'm not even really sure what I don't even know what the second painting is. I remember the first one, I sold it, but yeah, I have. If you saw my studio right now, there's like 100 paintings in bins and all over the place, and they're ones that I'm not really happy with. I don't want them to go out there yet. So every once in a while, I'll take a day. I used to call on Touch Up Tuesdays, and I would just have like 10 paintings, and I would just put them on the easel. Because if it's sitting in your studio for like a year, and you put it on your easel, then you go, oh, I know what that needs, and or maybe it only takes 15 minutes. But if I
Yeah.
do that to a bunch of paintings, then it makes me feel really good. Or the other option is
Excuse me.
if I think there's no hope for it, I'll just scrape it down and sand it and turn it upside
Yeah.
down and make it another painting. Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking for something. I do that with photographs too. I mean, I take a lot of photographs, and I save ones I probably shouldn't. Just because okay, put them out there on a disc, they're out of sight. But I will occasionally, on a fairly regular basis, go back through and look at stuff and just see, what can I do with this? Can I use this? Can I put it together with something else? All right, and so
Right.
I'll put stuff together. I just did one. I'm going to do for the Robert T. Wright Gallery member show. It's coming up, and I'm calling it homage to Rene Magritte because what
Oh,
it is, it's a barn and trees and bushes around a red barn, bright sunlight, and what I've done is I put the sky in the background is nighttime. It's got a big moon. It's got the stars. It's all black because he did that. And
okay.
I just find some of his work amazing because other people wouldn't do it. The interesting thing about it is the comment he made. He did two like that, and and the comment he actually made was that only God can imagine a scene like that with the daylight and the night at the same time, and be able to turn it into paint. And since I have no expectations currently of becoming a god, I'm stopping the project. I'm not going to continue
Oh,
with the
okay.
project. So,
Okay.
he was funny. I liked him, but I like some of his work too. So a lot of his work. Anyways, there was one other thing that I wanted to, and I'm trying to find it where I had it. And it was because you had made a comment in one of your blogs here about a book that you read. You were reading it for the second or third time. And you made a quote about, oh, here it is right here. I'm reading Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert for a second or third time. And she emphasizes that when inspiration hits you, you should run with it. So that's exactly what I did. And how often does that happen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, probably not as often as I'd like, but like I was for Christmas Eve this year. This is the first year like none of my kids were going to be with me, and I wasn't going back east. So I asked a friend if she would go to the Taos Pueblo because I've heard it was a magical event where they have like a Catholic mass, and then they have like a procession, and then they build these huge bonfires. So I said, I want to go see that. But you can't take photographs. Like if you got your camera out, they confiscate it and then you don't get it back. You get your camera out, your phone, anything. So anyway, I couldn't, when we got there, the sun was on the mountains and they were glowing and the purple clouds. It was just like beautiful. All I wanted to do was take a picture, but I couldn't. And then later on, they had this procession after the mass. They had this like thing where they carried it was like a small rendition of the Virgin Mary, and they carried her around and shot gunshots while they did it. It was very bizarre, the whole thing, the whole night. And then they had these like towers of wood that were like 25 feet tall, and each family had built one, and they climbed to the top and lit it from the top. And then as these fires were going, I was standing there thinking, I want to paint this. Like, I definitely want to paint this. So I remember just trying to embed the image in my brain as much as I possibly could. And then I started painting New Year's Day, and it's almost done. It's not quite finished. But it's of the fire and the people. And it was kind of interesting making up the people from my memory, because I've painted so many people that I know what people look like. I know how their heads should line up when they're in a crowd. I know all that stuff. But the first day that I was painting, I was kind of having a hard time. And the second day, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to put person in here and make this one light against the dark and this one dark against the light. And I was really having fun with it. And it's almost finished. And it was just really inspirational, exciting. I knew I had to paint it. And I love when that happens, that something gets stuck in your head that you want to paint.
Yeah.
And you just have to do it. But, and as far as that quote goes that she had, there's also this whole thing about if you get an idea and you don't use it, somebody else might. Like it's floating around. And it sounds really weird, but
no.
But I just want to tell you the story. This happened in college. I had a graphic design class, and we had to do an illustration. And I did an illustration of all these little construction workers with cranes and bulldozers and assembling a big hamburger with, they were putting the bun on top. And I swear to God, a month later, McDonald's had this build your own Big Mac. And I was like, oh my God, they took my idea. And obviously they didn't take my idea, but I think that idea was floating around and they used it, and so did I. Yeah. And they got a lot more money and credit for it than I did. I think I got an A on the project, but I kind of believe that. So if you get this great idea, I think you need to do it, not just think about it for a while. That's my theory.
And a lot of people agree with you. There's a poet, Ruth Stone, passed away in 2011, but in 2007, she was the first woman to be named Poet Laureate for Vermont, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
But she said that growing up, working in the fields, she would have this feeling of something rushing in this huge thing of air or this idea rushing at her, barreling at her. And the only thing she could do is run as fast as she could. And she describes it this way: run as fast as I could to the house to get paper and pencil to write it down, and pray that I made it in time, because if I didn't, that idea would come barreling through me, and I would try to grab it. And if I couldn't grab it, it would go on, and it would find another poet to write.
I read that somewhere. Yes.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she did. And she's, some of her poetry is really nice. But yeah, and I think most people are probably that way. I get ideas all of a sudden. A lot of times I'll get an idea of like something from, I'm borrowing from an artist, like the one for Rene Magritte I was talking about. But a lot of times I'll just get something, and I gotta do it. You just gotta go down and capture it. If you don't, then it's either it goes away, or I just will lose interest in it. Okay, because something else comes up, and
I'm
I
like
got to
that
do it
with
right
my
then.
painting. Like, if I paint something plein air, that's fabulous. That's my favorite way to paint. But it's not possible. Like today, it's cold out. It is sunny, but it's cold out. But if I can't paint on location and I go somewhere and take great photographs, I try to come home and paint them the next day while it's still like in my psyche, and it's just like still in me, that I can paint it because it's so
Yeah.
fresh. So I try to do that.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. I mean, I've heard the same sort of stories, or seen the same sort of things being said by even Taylor Swift. Okay, it says basically
Okay.
the same thing. She's trying to write a song. She says, you know, sometimes the idea will just, hey, it's there, and then
Yeah.
when it's not, which is often, then she has to rely on her knowledge of writing music and stuff, and sort of force something, when she needs to come up with a new song for an album or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not just,
She grew up.
it's artists everywhere.
I have to add that Taylor Swift grew up one block from where I used to live in Wyomissing Hills.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. She was a year ahead of my oldest son. And I remember going to the Reading Phillies game, and she was the little 12-year-old singing the Star Spangled Banner. Yeah.
What's that thing about 6 degrees of separation?
Yeah.
Somebody knows somebody that knows somebody that know her. So, this is
Right.
interesting. Oh, that's something. Okay, all right. Let's see if I can get this thing going here again. And I would like to at least just look at some of your artwork here. And these are all, well, you can see they're all available paintings and what have you, but they're definitely very interesting. This celebrating fabric of America, I was sort of interested when I looked at this, and let's see if I can get
Oh,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I started that in 2019, and I wanted to start painting something that was a little more meaningful. So I started painting women that I met or knew whose background was from different countries, because it was right around the time when there was this big thing about immigrants, and I was thinking, well, we all came from somewhere, we all came
yeah,
from somewhere else.
yeah. All of
The
our
majority
famous
of us,
immigrants.
unless you're Native American.
Yeah,
So I've interviewed all these people, and then I did paintings of them, and I put symbolism in that was kind of from their backgrounds. And I had a solo show. I did 16 paintings. 2 were of myself, and then I had them all tied together with ribbons that said things like celebration and togetherness. It was called, like, we're all a different colored thread of the human fabric, which
Yeah.
that's been said before. But so I did this big show, and it was at this little university, Alvernia, and then it was, let's see, was it 2020? Yeah, I guess it was February. I don't know when it was. It was right before COVID hit, and my goal had been to take them around to different colleges and try to, evoke conversations about this. And
Yeah.
then COVID happened, and there was no shows, no nothing. So all those
Oh,
paintings are
yeah.
sitting around my house right now. But I do want to keep going with it because I love the idea. And I mean, all the paintings were 24 by 36, and it was written up
Yeah.
in a couple articles, and it was just a fun project. I didn't make any
Wow.
money off of it, but it's it's fun,
Yeah.
and I want to
That's
continue with it.
interesting. It reminds me. I've got a book, and I haven't looked at it for a long time. I think the photographer's name was Larkins or something like that. But what it was a book totally of portraits of black women that had made
Okay.
that were known, and the photography is absolutely beautiful. But that's all it is. It's just a book of all these portraits of these women that have, they've accomplished something in their lives, uh, and it's sort of the same thing you're doing here.
Yeah, the one woman, I don't, it's not on what's showing there, but her name was Chamaya or something like that.
Let me know if you see it
Let's
here.
see. Oh, it's the black and white one, right there in the middle on the my right. She has her hand on her hip.
Oh, okay, that one right there.
Yeah, I had an art show and I had people sign up if they wanted to pose for me. So she signed up and she came. And she was really, really nervous. And she said, I don't know how to stand. And I said, oh, I said, that's a perfect stand. Stand like this. Because they would stand for me and I'd paint them. And then later on, I would, finish it up. But she said, oh, I feel really comfortable like this because I'm the oldest of 12 and I've had a baby on my hip my whole life. And she was like 23. And she had
Oh
raised,
man.
her mother was a crack addict and she raised all these kids and she was trying to go to college and her mother was stealing her money. And it was a horrible story. And when I did her painting, I put across her shoulder, there's like a ribbon.
Yeah.
And, she was African American. So I put the symbol of bravery and strength. And I wrote about that in
Ah.
this
Okay.
booklet. And I told her, and I said, I think you're very strong, very brave. And she was like, oh my God. She goes, no one has ever told me that. Like, like she just saw herself as being this person, like beaten up by life. And I'm thinking how strong and how brave she is. And it
Yeah.
really made her feel satisfied. And I felt really good that I made her feel good. So it was, and she came to the art show. And I remember her saying, can I bring my friends? I was like, yeah. She said, is it free? I said, yes, it's at the university. Of course it's free. And
Oh,
all
that's
the
great.
women in the show were very proud to be in it. It was very exciting. It meant a lot to me. And that's why I would like to continue with it someday. I'm not sure when, but
I think it's a
hopefully.
marvelous project.
Thank you.
Go back through some of the
And
other
this
ones here.
woman was from her family was from England, and they were farmers. So that she's sitting there with a basket of red beets and potatoes, and her family pictures in the background. So yeah, they all had a story that was interesting, fun to do. And she was a world history teacher. So she said, I'm German, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about, I'm from the world. And she came in with this globe and we did this
Yeah.
painting. She was
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah.
Huh.
So
Okay.
anyway, that was a fun
Let's see what
project.
happens here. I'm trying to. Oh, there we go. I was trying to get back. It's hard to see on the little piece that I have the control as it was just hard to see where the controls were. So,
Yeah, it's hard for me to see too.
well, yeah. That's not what we want people to see the picture, so that's the important part.
Yeah, so I mean, I
Okay.
paint all kinds of things. I do like painting models, and I just got finished building a big studio on the back of my house. I'm sitting in it right now, and I haven't, I've only painted in it twice, so it's really exciting. But I'd like to eventually have models come, and I'm going to be teaching in here too, so it's exciting. But that one that's showing right now is from Mexico, but the end of this month, I'm actually driving to Florida from Santa Fe, which sounds crazy, to teach 3 workshops because I used to teach in Florida all the time and I haven't been there in a long time. So
Yeah.
I'll be heading back
I've
there a
never
couple weeks.
never been a Florida fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my parents lived
Well,
down there when after they retired for a number
Okay.
of years, and so I'd go down at Christmas time every year and visit with them and stay down there. It's just too flat for me. It's
Well,
like,
it is. I would.
you
I
know,
mean, I wouldn't want to
it's
live there, but it's nice to go be warm in the
oh
winter.
yeah, oh yeah. That's why I'd always get down at
Yeah.
Christmas. Avoid the weather up here.
Because people think Santa Fe is warm because we're south, but we're at 7,000 feet, so it's cold. I mean, it
Yeah,
snows and it's cold. So
yeah.
yeah, it's not
Okay.
hot.
All right. Was there anything here that you wanted to talk about?
No, those are really little
On
tiny studies and sketches.
okay,
Just happen.
okay.
Not even sure why they're still there.
All right. Do you have any workshops or where do we go? Workshops or coming up
Well,
or
like I said, I have three coming up. There's one in Lighthouse Arts Center, which is in Jupiter, Florida. And then I go the other side to Bonita Springs, Florida. And then I drive down to Key West and teach. So I'm teaching those three places. And then when I come back in April, I'm having one in Santa Fe. It's not at my studio, it's at Bluebird Studios, and it's this couple that has this giant barn and they have like campfires and it's like the whole Santa Fe experience.
yeah,
So I'll be teaching how to add figures to your paintings in
yeah.
that class. And I think the next one is in Georgia at the Booth Museum next October. So, and I have a lot of
Okay.
online classes and they're all listed there, like they're different subjects. One's palette knife basics, where I just paint that little cottage in the middle, and then there's some of how to add figures. There's one about dynamic symmetry. There's one about sunflowers. So those are ones that you can sign up for and watch the recorded version. But one thing I like to do
So
when someone takes a class, I give them a free critique. So they'll send me
yeah.
their painting, and then I'll show them how I would fix it.
So how much do your classes normally run? One of these online ones.
Oh, the online ones I think are 125. So it's like a 3-hour class, and then you get a critique.
Okay.
And some people take them live, but I haven't done one live since last April. I think it's just I was having workers here, and there was drilling and sawing and noise, so
Yeah.
they just kind of finished
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago.
Oh, maybe I'll take one.
Yeah, they're fun.
I
And
do. Yeah, I play around with digital painting sometimes. Doing some illustrations for a book my wife's writing, and
okay,
I love the palette knife and the thick paint. And I've done a
yeah,
couple. I've used that on a couple images. One I call it a I don't know, abstract collage type thing that I
okay,
did as a combination of photographs and then putting in and using a palette knife to manipulate the background and everything and what have you.
okay.
And I took first place at our member show one year, so
Nice,
it
congratulations.
turned out pretty
What's
good.
nice?
I was happy with it. Excuse me?
What's nice about I said what's nice about a knife is a lot of my students, they're too tight, and meticulous with their paintings.
Yeah.
And I started using a knife. Well, my older paintings are really tight and meticulous. And then I started plein air painting, and then it's kind of hard, you have a couple hours, they get looser. And then my plein air paintings were getting loose. And what it happened in Paris, I was in Paris one year, I think it was 2000, I don't know, 8 maybe. And I went with 3 friends that didn't paint, and they would go shopping, and I'd go painting. And it was in November, and I was all set up on Saint Germain, and I had everything set up. It was 42 degrees. It was kind of chilly, and I realized I didn't have any paper towels, and we
Uh,
had no cell phones, and I was like, okay. So I got out my palette knife, this one right here, and I decided that I would do the whole thing with a knife because I could just wipe it on my apron, and just keep. I didn't need a paper towels. So it was the last painting of the week, and it was my favorite painting. And I was like, okay, what
yeah.
does that tell me? I think maybe I should use a knife more. So it really
Yeah.
loosens you up because you don't have as much
Yeah.
control, and it does kind of interesting things on its own. So
Now,
I really enjoy it.
do you do basically oil, or do you do acrylic also, or what
I
what
use
mediums are
oils,
you
but
using?
I use this is what I use, Cobra, and it's water mixable oil paint.
Ah,
So it's
okay.
not. I mean, it's oil paint. Everybody thinks it dries faster. It's not acrylics. It's oil paint. They just put a soy emulsifier in it. And it's kind of like how you can make a salad dressing. It mixes with the water.
Okay.
It's just that one little emulsifier makes it work. I don't have to have solvents in my studio, which I like.
Yeah.
So it's all oil paint. I don't use any mediums because the paint itself is very creamy and I don't need to do anything. So if I would add a medium, it would get too runny and it wouldn't be thick enough. So
Yeah.
I just use the paint. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, since we're talking about that, let's go ahead and just give the readers or the viewers what we promised. You have a couple of insights into painting with a palette knife that you can pass on. It might help people decide to use it more often, if not improve what they already do.
Okay,
So what do you?
first of all, there's two different things. This is a painting knife. See how it comes down like a trowel?
Okay.
It goes
Yeah.
up. This is called a painting knife. A palette knife is that it's just completely flat, and it's what you use to scrape and mix. I don't even have any of those to show you one because I think they're kind of useless. So you want this kind, the trowel shape. Otherwise, your knuckles get in there. So this is a painting knife, and it's hard to see how big this is, but this is like 2.5 inches. I use only this one. I don't use. Very rarely do I another. So a lot of people come to class and they have these little tiny ones.
Yeah.
And what happens when they're little is they're stiff and they end up scraping the paint off. They're just too stiff and hard. They're not flexible. So what I do and I teach people is if you want a small knife, you just put paint on the tip of this one and wipe off the edge, and then you have a small knife and it's still flexible. It's not stiff like those little ones. So don't be afraid of a big knife because it's the bigger ones that are more flexible. And a lot of students are trying to put the paint down, but if they're even angling it a little bit too much, it scrapes the paint off. It doesn't put it on. So my tip is a big knife and a light touch. Like I hold it like this, like it just barely in my hand. Because a lot of people, because they're nervous, they grip it and they press really hard, and then it scrapes the paint off, and it doesn't.
That would be me.
Yeah. So just make it your friend, and you can use it for all kinds of stuff: scraping, mixing. You don't have to use a brush. You don't have to clean your brushes. And but my next tip, which is really important, and it sounds really silly, but see how clean and shiny my knife is? There's no paint gooped on it. Some people come to class and there's all this dried old paint on it. It's like, well, that's totally useless. It doesn't do anything. So if you do have one like that, put rubbing alcohol on it and scrape it with a razor blade, and you can make it back to brand new. So all my knives look like this. They're all shiny and clean. And
all right.
That's my tip. Don't be afraid of it. The only time you have to be afraid of it is, if you cut yourself, because I use mine so much that they get kind of sharp, and I've already cut my finger by cleaning it quickly.
I wouldn't have thought they would be able to get that sharp.
You wouldn't think so either, but they do.
Yeah. Okay. So. All right. Then anything else you want to say? Anything you want to promote as far as your books? I know you've got some books out too.
I know it.
And I
highly 3 videos. I only have 2 of them with me, but I have 3 videos. One is on palette knife cityscapes.
Okay, there you go.
There it is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's my newest one, and that's the one I'm really proud of. And then I have 2 others. This one is people in a cafe, and they're all through Streamline or painttube.com. And the other one was a painting I did in Cuba. I don't have a copy of that one anymore, but anyway, I have those, and then the online things, and YouTube, Facebook and YouTube a lot of times. I just posted something on Instagram yesterday, which was showing the speeded up process of me doing the painting of the Pueblo.
Yeah.
And you can see that on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah.
Good.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess we will end this conversation with hey, thank you for doing this, and I'm looking forward to. Michelle is going to be doing a virtual demonstration for our Art League in about 2 weeks. I think it's third Monday is the 15th, I think,
The
something like that.
15th, yeah.
Yeah, and I know we're looking forward to doing that and seeing you. And that's it. And I'd like
Okay,
to.
I think I'm going to paint a cafe. I'm doing some new paintings for my gallery in Philadelphia, and there's a French cafe in Philadelphia called Park that I love to paint, and I think I'm
Ah,
going to paint that. It has a big red
okay.
awning with people and waiters and everything. So I
Okay.
think that's what I'll do.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because, like I say, I don't much paint except for digital sometimes, but I love seeing and learning stuff because I find I can apply some of this stuff to my photography and my digital work also. So, and I just love
Yeah.
art. So,
Yes. Well,
what
good,
what
good.
can I say? All right. Thank you for
Well, thank you
coming.
for having me. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.